Welcome to the Broken Graciously podcast, where we challenge the culture of brokenness by exchanging beauty for ashes holistically, with candid conversations, transparency, and practical tips. I'm your host, Tanisha B. Lester, lovingly known as Coach T. I'm a Master Certified Life and Business Coach, Certified Christian Coach, Certified Pastoral Counselor, and published author. I look forward to engaging with you in the comments as well as on IG. Follow me on IG at Tanisha B. Lester with the number 1. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Broken Graciously podcast. This is episode 5. And we have another special guest. So as you have been following, we have been talking about health. We've talked to some experts in their fields involving health. We've talked to some people that have had issues of their own concerning their health. And today is no different. So today our guest is Letia May, and we call her Tia. So let me just tell you a little bit about her, and then we will bring her in. So here's a little bit about Tia. She is a poetic thinker with a musical background. Side note, this girl can tear up some drums. Anyway, she was raised being awakened by her parents' favorite R&B artists such as Chaka Khan, Stephanie Mills, Kool and the Gang, Earth, Wind and Fire, and that's just to name a few. She started out at a really young age as a musician in elementary school with the violin. She moved on to the French horn, and eventually she landed on the drums, which is her sweet spot. So she's had to take a slight break from that because she was diagnosed with MS and began to show some symptoms. But she's in the space now where she's regaining control over that. And then what she began to learn during her process was that music and art of color became more of an interest to her. And she began to learn her natural skills in drawing, coloring, painting, and the blending of colors. So what she says is that poetry bled from every pen and pencil that she touched. Now, this is a gift that's innate to her that she began to utilize as well as writing. And she says that God really sat her down and took his time when he thought of her. So we're going to talk to her just a little bit about her story in this episode. And we'll see where what she says is when and where her steps are ordered, it will be bright and it will bring light. So welcome, Tia, to our podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Appreciate being on your platform today. It's an honor.
I appreciate you saying yes, and I appreciate you coming in the room. All right, so these is just, I like these organic conversations because up to this point, like I've had some real fun with the ladies that have come into the room and how our conversations have flowed. So can you tell us just about your MS journey and like how you came to, first of all, know that you even had MS and how that's affected you from the time of diagnosis or even before and to, starting to move towards where we are now?
Well, 2009 is when the diagnosis started. I'll say that at the time I was working in the barbershop cutting hair, and I started noticing my body getting off balance and having a lot of discomfort and weakness, and I didn't know what was going on. I went and saw a chiropractor, thought I needed to, get seen for that because I do go there regularly. And so when I went, they said, my back was fine. It wasn't off or anything like that. Just, get some rest. I had been working a lot, so I thought maybe from working a lot, I'm just wearing myself out, not resting enough. So that summer, I went to Florida. It was around July, August, end of July. And I was there for about a week. What I noticed is being in that heat, my body started to slow down. I was trying to keep up with my friends. We were, going in and out of the hotel, different places. And the more I went outside, the less strength I noticed I was having, the less mobility I was realizing I could do. It was just getting complicated. And I also had to play drums, which you mentioned, me being a drummer. I had to play drums at that conference. And while I was there, I noticed it was like slowing down. Everything was slowing down, and I didn't understand what was going on. When I came back home about a few weeks later, it was September, first week of September, I was at work and my stabilization was really off. I was stumbling a lot and I couldn't understand what was happening. So I said, let me run to the ER, see what's going on. Went past the ER, they did a few tests, they sent me back home as if nothing was wrong. Few days later, I woke up, went to get out of bed, and my legs were paralyzed completely. For me, I know this is a serious situation, but I'm a comedian at heart.
Yeah.
Like, I laugh at everything.
Yeah.
So when I saw my legs, like looking like spaghetti is what I call it, I was like, what in the world? This looks like a cartoon. So I kept on, trying to straighten my legs and they wouldn't straighten. So I called my best friend. She was in her room, screaming through the house, calling her name. She came in and I said, look at my legs. They're like spaghetti. And I'm laughing. And
Right.
she's looking all serious. And she's like, this isn't funny. Is this serious? And I'm like, yeah, I have no strength. I can't straighten my legs out. I can't do anything with them. I was trying to get up. And she was like, well, first you need to stop laughing because this isn't funny. I said, I
Right.
know, but I
Right.
laughed.
Keep
So
from crying. Yeah.
laughter is medicine. That's what the word says.
Absolutely.
So we went to the ER. They that experience on that day, that I went to the wrong ER, should I say. I went in there and I wasn't treated right. It was, I don't want to call out any hmm,
It was
I don't want to
extra.
say what it
Got it.
was, but it was what it was.
Right.
And at the end of that visit, instead of them bringing the wheelchair to my bedside and helping me into it, they left it at the door, which my best friend pulled it over to the bed the best she could. And when I went to go try to get into the bed, I fell. So now I'm on the floor. And there were patients walking in the hallway and saw that, and they're calling for the nurses and everybody to come help me. And the way I was handled at that moment was very, very sad and disrespectful. So, I got up, I got out of there. I said, let me get out of this hospital. I went home, called my doctor's office. They scheduled me an appointment for later, like 4 or 5 days later. And I'm like, I can't walk. Wait 4 or 5 days to continue not to be able to walk and do what I need to do that I've been doing prior to this moment. That was uncomfortable. So I decided to go to another ER. I felt like God gave me the idea to go to a hospital called Virtua. May I say the name? I should have asked first. But I went to Virtua and it was like Jesus was at the door waiting for me. When I pulled up, the lady came rushing to the car. She goes, how may I help you? Can you tell me what's going on? And I started to tell her. And from that moment on, it was like the red carpet was rolled out. They rolled me in. She told me to keep the fact that I visited the other hospital to myself until I see the doctor, because the way hospitals work, if they hear you went to another hospital, they may feel some kind of way about you and treat you different.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So she told me to keep that to myself till I saw the doctor. As I got to the doctor, I mean, it was smooth. It was no wait, really. It was just like boom, 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 boom. And I'm in the doctor's face, like, okay, this was quick. Okay, Jesus, I see you're here. So they dealt with me very well. Doctor actually held my hand and
Okay.
sat close, like he sat like I was his family, and he wanted to come and let me know he was comforting me and going to walk me through this situation. So that was heartfelt and helped me to see that, okay, the Lord is with me. So I continued to rest in God with that, with my mind and stuff. And that turned into a 4 month stay in rehab. So after being in the hospital for about, I think, 2.5, 3 weeks, they transferred me into rehab. and I had to learn how to walk again. I had to learn how to they wanted to see my function with taking care of myself, the most that I can do before they sent me home. And I was finally able to go home. I had to use a walker at first and then a cane. And then I was able to walk again. But that took some time on and off. I had to relearn how to walk again because with the way MS works after getting diagnosed, and learning more about it, the way it works is you go through relapses at times, you go through your body. So basically, your brain is told one thing, which isn't a true thing, and it sends the body to go after um, what they think is wrong inside the body to go fix it, which in turn is damaging the body. It's breaking up the communication, putting holes through the system. So now the body's not functioning properly because it's not computing what's being said the right way. It's not going the right direction. And there's a lot of confusion going on in the body. So I dealt with that and, getting my mind stabilized. I did my best, I'll say, through the whole time to keep my mind on Jesus. I read my Bible every day. I prayed every day. People that came to visit me, they were like, we came to uplift you. And it seemed like you uplifted me. I feel like you came to visit me at the hospital. I said, listen, I felt like God put me on timeout because I have big things in my future ahead of me. And he needs me to regroup and get my mind together and my spirit ready so that I'm available for that. So that was my whole mindset the whole time, like be ready for what's coming. So relax now, get your mind together now, get your spirit in line and focus.
Absolutely. So for those that aren't familiar, MS is multiple sclerosis. Um, and that's what she's talking about. It actually becomes like plaque deposits within the brain that begin to send those mixed signals to the body. That's what she's referring to. So I can relate to the Jesus putting you on timeout, right? Because often we, in our minds, like we can rest a little later. We can, just keep moving and going and doing. And maybe this particular symptom has already manifested in some way, but we tend to kind of ignore things and maybe push
Right,
it off to the side because it doesn't seem immediate in that
right,
moment. But when we can sit down and sit back and actually have that time out, you can see where some of those symptoms were already present, maybe, or had presented themselves earlier, and you just weren't quite aware of it. So, in your time out, did you notice that like there may have been some other signs prior to that real onslaught of symptoms?
definitely. I can say, whew, for like maybe 3 years prior to, I had little symptoms that happened. My vision, one of my eyes went gray and I couldn't see clear out of it. Went to the doctors for that. They said it may be stress. So, I focused on calming down. If I was stressed about anything, I made sure, Lord, clear my mind, clear my heart. If it's something you need to let me see that I'm focusing on too much, show me what it is so that I can calm myself down and I can set things in order so that I'm not dwelling on it like however I'm dwelling on it, possibly or whatever. But that happened, I think, like 3 times, 3 different levels of it. And I ended up with like floater in my left eye from it. And I still deal with that floater, but it's kind of, I don't pay attention to it much. Sometimes I see it, sometimes I don't. But that in the process of having this MS, I've dealt with since paralyzing of the legs, I dealt with my vision going also. My eyes went almost completely black. They got really, really dark twice. The first time it was more gray. Second time it went black almost completely. And that really scared me because I couldn't see the images of people's faces clear. When they came to talk to me, I'm looking at them and I'm like, this is crazy. Like, I can't really see what you look like. And that was like, okay, Lord, what's going on? I need my eyes. Like I needed my legs and still do. I need my eyes. You healed me. You allowed me to walk again, because he did allow me to walk again. And I was able to start cutting hair again. I was able to play the drums again. A few other things I was able to start doing again. But my eyes faded out. That I remembered while I was in the hospital. Prior to that, I remembered my eyes had that moment of fading. And I was like, okay, is this stress related? Where did this come from? Because it's not in my bloodline.
Right.
No one in my life has ever, that I know of, has ever had MS. So, the doctor did ask that. And I was like, I've asked a few of my family members, have they heard that in our family before? And they said no. So I was the first one. And I'm like, this is interesting.
So here's a question that I'm literally hearing in my ear. Oftentimes when the things that we love are passions, your passion for cutting the hair, and she's good at it, y'all. She cut my son's hair, she cut my grandson's hair. She's the it in the barber world. She's the it on the drums. I'm just saying. And that's not just because I know her, because the girl is bad. Just period. But knowing that your passions were being attacked and you were unable to do them, which are directly correlated and speak specifically to your identity. How did that identity attack feel? Because like that can really, really throw us off kilter when our identities are being attacked.
So that question at the time, I don't think it hit me hard then. I think because I took it as a timeout, I need a minute to rest and regroup. I felt like I trusted and believed that God was going to restore my walking again, and it wasn't going to be long. I had my clients who came and visited me and called me. They said, listen, if you have to sit on the floor and cut my hair, I'll sit on the floor with you. Like they were, they were serious. And a lot of the guys, they started to link up and pray for me. They called me and told me we've been calling each other and texting each other and setting up times to pray for you. And I said, really? And these aren't guys that normally would do nothing like that. So this happening in my life brought them to another place in prayer, which touched my heart, because I was like, oh, use me, Lord, use me. Because I said it a long time ago, whichever way you need to use me, use me. And he chose a way, and he was using me.
Yeah, we got to be
I
careful.
can say that it's that right there. I had that conversation last night too.
We just be saying stuff and then it come and we be like, oh, wait, I ain't mean it like that. I didn't mean it like that. But, yeah, time out.
Not like that. Yeah, just they encouraged me. The guys encouraged me. They called me a lot, text me a lot. Some came and visit me at the hospital, and they really encouraged me. And they just, a lot of them didn't get haircuts. They were trying to wait it out till I could cut again. And I'm like, don't do that, because you still work every day. You still got stuff to do. They're like, no, we're going to treat this like No Shave November. I'm like, No Shave November. Don't go walking around in my name looking like that. But I understand you're nervous who to go to. But, and I suggested people for them to check out or whatever. But they were really nervous, and they rather pray for me and wait for me than to sit in another chair. So that encouraged me. And because of my belief in knowing that God was going to restore me, I couldn't let the reality of what was going on make me heavy and heavy weighted and sorrowful and stuff like that. I don't want to feel that. I hate to feel sad. I hate to feel worried and all that kind of stuff. So I do my best to push that away from me. So that kind of kept me, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. I I think I think a lot of times when illness strikes, we do tend to wallow, right? Just wallowing in that stage of pity of, oh, woe is me type situation versus there's nothing wrong with feeling that, let me say,
Yeah.
because those are human emotions that we're supposed to feel, we're supposed to process, but it becomes a
Yeah.
problem when you utilize that as an excuse not to move forward, as an excuse not to pray, as an excuse not to reframe your thought processes and to see it from a different
Yeah.
perspective. It's in seeing all of those things, the hurt, the pain, the illnesses, when we can reframe those is when we can begin to start to see healing in a new form. And that's when our testimonies are the greatest. Um, because,
Right.
she could have easily just sat there and wallowed and just been like, okay, well, my legs don't work. I can't cut hair. I can't drum. Like I can't do any of these things. Life is as I know it is over. But that's not
Right.
the perspective that you took, and I can appreciate that. And most importantly, I applaud you for that. Because
Thank you.
everybody doesn't have that type of perspective. Um, so after you came out of rehab, and you gained your mobility back, what was your what was the first thing you did? Like, did you go to church first? Like, because we start bargaining with God. All right, God, if you heal me, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, or the other. Not to say that you weren't doing any of those things anyway. I just want to know, like, what did you miss the most, and what was the first thing you did?
What I missed the most was really just being around my people, but a lot of them came to see me, so I was able to be around them. Like once I got home, what I can say happened is a group of my friends, my closest friends at the time, they all came over to the apartment and we had Bible study together like once a week, which was awesome. My nephew at the time, he was about 2, 3 years old. He's just sitting there with us. He had a children's Bible. There's more pictures and colors, a few words.
Mhm.
He and it has some, stories in the Bible in it too. He sat with us and he opened up his book in the middle of our Bible study and he goes, I want to read this. And he couldn't read at the time, but he pointed to a paragraph in his book and said, I want to read this. I want to talk about this. I said, oh, okay. And at first, I was just like, hold on, because other people were talking. And then I said, let me see what he's talking about. And I looked at it. How about what he pointed at was the topic we were talking about?
Look at
It
y'all.
blew my mind. I said, okay, guys, hold on. We got to stop real quick. My nephew just said he wants to read this. I'm going to read this for him. And I read it out loud. And the whole room just was going crazy because they're like, wait a minute, what?
What does the Bible says, out of the mouth of babes?
It was crazy. So I didn't have an opportunity really to miss too much because God allowed people to come close to me. He allowed people to come into my presence and give me what he knew I needed. He knew I needed that private Bible study time, the one-on-ones with my friends. I can even say before even leaving the hospital and leaving the rehab, during the hospital stays, nurses and stuff used to come in my room and they would hide like behind the curtains and sit down and say, if anybody's coming looking for me, please don't say I'm in here. Your room is the only room with peace in it. And I just want to keep, that's why I'm in here a lot. And I'm like, oh, really? They're like, yeah, nowhere else in this hospital has peace like this room. She was like, I don't know if you bought that in here or I don't know what it is, but I'm coming in here with you. And I said, oh. And they used to sit there and tell me their life. And I found God using me. And I'm like, Lord, I'm supposed to be in here to get help. Okay, maybe you got me in here to do something else. And after a while, I started realizing through more relapses and stuff that he uses me in the hospital to minister to these people. And I found myself praying, walking, I would take my laps in the hallway
Mhm.
and I would pray for all the people in the hospital as I walked past because I would hear people crying and screaming out in the middle of the night. We had alarms on our bed, so if we got out, they would know we got up, and it was a lot of alarms going off in there.
Okay.
And so it was this one room that was the most noise. And I would stop past that room. I wouldn't go in. I just stopped past that room and really pray because I just felt bad for the patient that was in there. And so once I got home and stuff like that, I still continued to do that. I still pray for the people in the hospital because of what I saw, what I experienced. And at the time, there was a concert that was coming up, and everybody said, T, you want to go? You haven't been to church. And I'm like, but I don't want to walk around with this cane. I don't want to be walking with no cane.
Right.
They're like, oh, just come on, you'll be fine. And they're like, you'll be fine. And I'm like, all right. And I found ways to hide the cane, off to the side of me, behind me when I was standing still. Because I just didn't want to be seen with the cane. Because I'm like, I just want to walk with,
Right.
my normal strength. But I really enjoyed when I went to church to that concert. It was a blessing. Um, I did miss the congregation of coming together with the saints, but I think the intimate times I had with the people in my hospital room, rehab room, and in my house, they were big to me. So it didn't pull on me to, oh my gosh, I miss church, I miss church, I miss church. Of course, I love church. I love the music, the singing, and all that comes with it. But it's just those times in my apartment and where I was, I don't know, it just did something different for me than when I was longing to be out of the hospital and stuff like that. And once I had those moments, I'm like, God is with me and he's here with just seeing what was going on, watching my friends and them spend this kind of time with me and hearing their testimonies and the different people I came in contact with. It kept me at a peace and I felt like I'm where God wants me to be. So I was comfortable. It didn't make me like long and be all in misery of, oh my gosh, I need to be somewhere. I was comfortable.
Okay. Cool. I love it. I love that you were not only were you used, not only was your anointing heightened, expanded, but you were refreshed in that time as well, not only in your body and your mind, but in your
Yes.
soul, most importantly. I think we as
Yes.
Christians, we don't always tap into that soul place. That soul place is the seat
Right.
of our will, our emotions, and our intellect. Um, and that's an important place for us to dwell in and to
Yeah.
pour, to feed, because that's where all of our being lies. And we go from that place and pouring and how we show up in the world and how we present to others as Christians. Like that's the place that we do all of that from. So I love that. I really, really love that. So as you guys have seen, like it sounds like tragedy, right? That she had this diagnosis and all of these things were occurring and happening to her at this one particular time. But there's beauty in that brokenness. She was broken literally graciously by the Father to bring her to another level, and not only bring her to another level, but she didn't allow her light to be dimmed. She stood boldly on that hill in that hospital room and she allowed that light to shine brightly. So I love all of that. So come give us your last final thoughts for this episode on just advocating for yourself and seeing whatever position you're in from a different perspective and not just from a negative perspective.
Hmm. One thing that just keeps standing out in my head since I've been talking, there was two elderly women who were my roommates at two different times. One of them, she was in her 90s. She had fallen in her backyard. She was going out to feed the animals of the area she lived in. She would feed them.
Okay.
She said she had the top to her trash can and she would put the different foods on the top and walk down the steps and go into her yard. I guess the day before it rained. So there was like a lot of wet leaves on the ground. And when she stepped out, she slipped and fell on her back. She was on the floor, on the ground for 3 days, she said. She couldn't yell, she couldn't scream help because she had no strength. And when she hit her back, it took the wind out of her. She only was found because one of her sons, someone in her family had passed away and they were reaching out to tell her. And because she didn't answer the phone, her son went to go tell her and see, what was going on, why she didn't answer. She ended up being my roommate. So she was with me about a week. And in that time, she stopped me in my tracks. First of all, she was my cheerleader. Every time I walked from my bed to the bathroom, she goes, "Look at you. You're getting stronger. You're doing a great job. Keep going." And I'm like, huh? Like, what is she talking about? I'm over here taking one step at a time. I'll just slide across this room with this walker. I'm not really doing that, but hey, I'll take her cheerleading. And so every day, like, that pushed me. And then she stopped me and said, "I don't mean to be in your business, but I've heard your phone calls. I've listened to the people who visited with you and the conversations you've had." She said, "It's been over 60 years since I've been in church, and you've given me the desire to want to go back."
That's beautiful.
And I just, like, it hit my heart so heavy. I'm getting a little emotional. It hit my heart so heavy. I was just like, wow, 60 years without a relationship with the Lord, and you've had it before? Sheesh. Lord. And I was just grateful that I was the one there to be able to, without knowing, minister to her and be an example of who God is in my life. Something I did and also always do when I go to the hospital and get admitted, I always ask for my family to bring up my paint and some of my I have like little pieces of wood that I paint on. Okay. And I painted her a picture and gave it to her before she left. And her daughter came over to my bed before they left and said, "I don't know what it is you've done while my mom's been here with you, but she keeps talking about you when I speak with her over the phone. She sounds so much brighter. She was really excited to meet you. I was excited to meet you once I came to the hospital because she kept talking about you." She said, "In that picture you painted for her, she's really, really excited to have that picture. It means something huge to her." She said, "So I'm going to make sure I put that in a special place for her to see every day." She said, "But there's something different about my mom since she's met you." And she said, "Just thank you." Like, she just kept thanking me. And I'm like, no problem. She's an awesome person too, whatever. And it's just like, I'm like, Lord, that it was huge to me to hear that conversation with her saying, "I haven't been to church, I haven't even had a conversation with the Lord in 60 years. I'm like, I'm not even 60, and that's a long time. Like, yeah. 6 weeks would be too much for me. 6 days would be too much for me. 60 years?
That's a long
That
time.
stood out. And then the different people that I saw during rehab, that when they were sat next to me to do the same exercises I had to do, I'm encouraging them, "Come on, let's do this together." Because some of them, they weren't interested in it. They didn't want to do it. They just wanted to go home. And I'm like, they said we can't go home until we can get to a certain level of stability. So let's do this together so we can all get out of here together.
Right.
And doing all that, it pushed me to see that, one, there's motivation. I'm a motivator in some kind of way. I'm an encourager. I started seeing who I was. So God allowed me to see what He's placed in me through these small moments with these different people. So I'm like, now I'm at a point where it's like, okay, even since then, I've been in the hospital. I've been admitted for weeks at a time because of MS situations. And I've had a testimony of something big that the Lord did for someone because of my presence in the hospital with them. And just seeing that, I'm like, okay, God allows me to have, He uses sick moments, um, weak moments, difficult moments in my life for me to be an example to someone, to me to be a light to someone. And I can't always, like, I had to learn that I couldn't say, but Lord, I don't feel well. Why you got me talking to these people? Because I said it once. Then I had to stop in the middle of saying it and says, you know what? I think you got me on a mission. I think you set this up for me to do this, because who would these people be talking to if I didn't show up? They would still be holding on to those things and being in those different places and mindsets they were in if they didn't have the opportunity to have this type of conversation. So recently I've said to my leader, one of my leaders, that I said, God really, like, when he gives an illness, gives you the opportunity to walk with him through it, it's like he gives you a key to doors that you wouldn't naturally be able to get through. For instance, the hospital rehab and the different levels in the rooms that I've been in the hospital, and the different people that I was able to speak to.
Mm-hmm.
Who's ministering to these people if they don't go and go to church or have someone that they speak with themselves? Who's ministering to these people? And how often are ministers going into the hospital to speak to the staff versus just the patients? And it made me see something different. Like, the Lord allowed me opportunities to be at the presence of people and be their help, be their, peace, and their moment of, release of whatever was on their minds. Because you don't understand the kind of conversations I've had at my bedside. It would be mind blowing that you really have these people coming to my bedside to talk about all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, all right, let me continue to read the word. Let me continue to pray. And I'll say, these journeys, when God gives you a journey to, like, people get upset. They feel, like you said, the woe is me if they get a disease or a sickness, an illness, something that stops them from what they're normally used to doing and having the ability of doing. And they take it hard. Have your moment, take it hard for a moment, and then put it down. Leave it there. See what you can become. I've watched so many videos of people with no legs, no arms, no fingers, no hands, do so much more than what I can do today. I'm like, nah, if they can do all that, I can do anything. I can do anything. I can do anything I want to do.
Absolutely.
So this whole process of all of that, I just know that as long as I keep my mind focused in the good place. I was also taught, speak to the body. My doctors used to say, talk to your body, remind it what it used to do, remind it what you were able to do, and tell it that it's going to do it again. And keep talking to your body, reminding it what it used to do and what you want it to do. And it will hear you. It will remember. Muscle memory will click back in, and your body will start functioning again. But speak to your body. And I can even say, up until this past, December 2021, I dealt with some MS things that came up, and it's it stemmed into some other things where I had a slip disc in my neck, had to get a surgery.
Okay.
What triggered multiple sclerosis during that surgery.
Okay.
Became paralyzed. This was, let me put it in there. This was paralyzed. I couldn't do nothing with. I couldn't lift it up. Nothing
Okay.
for about 5 months, 6 months. Couldn't move it. And I'm like, Lord, you healed me from being paralyzed waist down. So I'm not worried about this arm. Yes, I cut hair at this time. Now you have me as a chef. You have me doing a lot of painting. I'm starting to write poetry again. I'm doing a lot of journaling again, because I in and out with journalism. I, you pick up the book and then you put it down and forget about it.
Right.
But he had me going back into that, and I said, okay, Tia, you read your word, you prayed, you shared your testimony, and you encouraged during that time when your legs were down. Now it's your arm. What are you gonna do? And it's like, get back in line, put my full armor on, March. So I'm just now at a place of, Lord, your will, your way. And now, really, at this point, whatever you bring in my path, I know you have a purpose in it. I know you have a plan in it. And I know you have a future for me in it. So I'm not going to look at the negative of what it could be or turn out to be. Because, the doctors did try to say, oh, you'll never walk again. Oh,
Yeah.
you won't get much of your mobility back. You're at this point, you may be in a wheelchair. You may have to use a walker forever, cane forever. And I kept telling them, no, that might be someone else's conversation, but I don't believe that for myself. And they go, that's a nice, attitude and mindset to have. But, and I'm like, skirt. And
There
to
is
me,
no
they
but.
were just doing this.
Right.
And I'm like, but God, but God. So I'll say in this, it's just keeping your heart and your mind in a good place, speaking to your body, making sure you eat well, making sure you exercise. Um, I had to learn different exercises, different meals to work with the medications I was given, work with what my body needed to respond better to. So learning all of that stuff, it helped me to become better at who I am and make it to today, to this podcast, which I'm again honored to be at.
I am grateful for you. So we're gonna wrap this up. Next week you will hear Tia again, and we're gonna delve into her chef hat situation and the meals that she cooks and how she actually utilizes food to help heal her body from the inside. So stay tuned for the next episode of Broken Graciously, where we challenge the culture of brokenness holistically with transparent conversations, practical tips, and all of those good things. So check you out. I'll see you on the next episode of Broken Graciously. Thank you for tuning in to the Broken Graciously podcast. Stay tuned for weekly episodes. Follow me on IG at Tanisha B. Lester and the number 1. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Blessings.